We often explore some pretty big ideas on this deep dive. Things like breakthroughs in science, shifts in how we think about human potential, maybe even the evolution of society itself.
Absolutely. We try to get into some complex stuff.
But what if one of the most profound keys to unlocking potential, maybe not just for us as individuals, but for like civilization itself, was something as seemingly simple yet deeply fundamental as direct sunlight? Sunlight.
Okay.
According to the sources we're digging into today, it's apparently not just about plants getting what they need. It's about consciousness. It's about human transformation.
That's quite a claim, isn't it? Taking something so everyday, sunlight, and positioning it as the central force for spiritual growth, societal advancement even.
It really is. And that's the core premise we're going to unpack today. We've got a whole stack of material right here. Website bits, a PDF presentation, even a YouTube transcript.
Right.
And these sources lay out the vision, the practices, the initiatives of this organization called Onelightsystem, or OLS for short.
Yeah, the material seems to cover a pretty wide range. We'll need to look at their core mission, their specific practices, which seem very focused on sunlight, their health stuff, what they say they're doing in science and tech, and this rather big vision they have for global unity, and even space exploration.
It's a lot. So our mission for you, our listener, is to sort of cut through all of this. We want to dive deep into these sources and pull out the really important bits. We want to help you quickly get a handle on OLS's main concepts, understand why they put such huge importance on receiving direct sunlight, and explore the concrete steps they claim they're taking towards building what they actually call a sunlight civilization.
Right, the sunlight civilization.
And see where this journey, according to their own stuff, is supposedly headed from personal health and community all the way up to talking with governments and, yes, even thinking about potentially colonizing Venus.
It really is a vast landscape of ideas and things they say they're doing. So we're here to guide you through it, point out some of the, surprising details, and help you see how all these pieces fit together within the OLS framework, at least as they present it.
Okay, so let's start right at the source, quite literally. At the absolute core of everything OLS talks about in this pile of sources is this one fundamental central idea: the importance of receiving direct sunlight.
And they're incredibly direct about this, aren't they? One source makes a statement that really stops you in your tracks. It says receiving direct light is as important as drinking water.
Wow. Okay, as important as water.
Yeah, they put it right up there as absolutely essential, a basic human need, just like hydration.
That's a bold claim. It immediately takes sunlight from just being, part of the environment to being a critical piece of human sustenance, well-being, according to their view anyway. But right after that really strong statement comes something really crucial, a vital clarification.
Yes, they immediately add a pretty significant warning. While they say it's highly beneficial, even a must-do, they strongly emphasize that it is also very dangerous if you don't do it correctly.
That duality seems critical. It's not just, go stand out in the sun. There's a clear message about potential harm. The sources explicitly stress you absolutely need to follow safe hours and other precaution.
And this is where their main practice comes in. OLS presents their sunlight meditation, or OLSLM, as the method for safely getting this direct light.
OLSLM.
Got it.
They describe it as a modern sort of redevelopment of traditional sun gazing, transforming it into this specific guided process they just call receiving direct light. Okay. So the implication is OLSLM gives you the structure and the knowledge you need to get the benefits while avoiding the dangers.
And they frame this practice not just as like a meditation technique or some health thing, but in much bigger terms. They call it an evolutionary human process.
Evolutionary human process, okay. Yeah. Which suggests that doing OLSLM isn't just about you improving yourself. It's framed as being part of some fundamental shift or advancement for humanity itself, like moving towards a new stage of development powered by this interaction with light.
So with that powerful core concept laid out, the obvious question is, who's behind this? Who's leading it? The sources identify the founder of Onelightsystem as Nazar Pankiv. He also goes by the name Asfitloten.
Asfitloten.
Okay.
And OLS itself was officially founded, the sources say, April 22, 2017, based in Belmont, California.
And the way they describe OLS is primarily as a meditation education academy. Its stated dedication is to spiritual development, achieved through practicing this sunlight meditation. They seem to outline a path for students from the basics all the way up to mastering the techniques.
Asfitloten is listed as the founder and CEO, and he also holds the title of OLS Master Teacher L4 within their system. One detail that really jumps out from the sources is the unique way they track progress, especially his own progress.
Yes, they use these really specific metrics based on light days and light minutes. It's interesting because the sources give slightly different stats, probably depending on when the document was created.
Right, different snapshots in time.
Exactly. So one source mentions him being 13.66 light days old, which they say equals 19,608 light minutes as of a particular point in their calendar system, 107.3405. But then another source gives slightly different numbers. 19,931 OLSLM accumulated, a light age of 13.84, and a daily average practice time of 6.76 minutes.
Okay. It really shows how deeply this idea of light minutes is baked into their system for measuring progress. And all of this work, all this practice, is directed towards a huge overarching goal they talk about, establishing a light civilization.
A light civilization. They see this as a future state for humanity, one where people are thriving in harmony with the sun, really recognizing it as the fundamental source of life. This civilization, OLS claims, would be all about enlightenment, illumination, and major spiritual growth, both for individuals and, for society as a whole.
And this vision is apparently built on core principles they state right in the sources. One is our star, our God. That pretty clearly points to a reverence, maybe even worship, of the sun as a divine or ultimate source of energy and life.
Definitely a strong statement. Then there's the principle of the light civilization itself, which seems focused on the practical steps and the collective effort needed to build this enlightened society by spreading their meditation practices.
And the third one they mention is empowerment. This sounds like it's about giving people the knowledge, the tools, the practices, mainly sunlight meditation, that they need for personal transformation, which then leads to collective transformation.
So, thinking about this foundational idea that receiving direct sunlight, safely guided by OLS methods, is presented as profoundly important for well-being, maybe even human evolution. Why should you, the listener, care? It's how they present this ancient universal thing, the sun, as a potentially revolutionary force. The sources present it as both vital and potentially dangerous, which, within their own logic, makes the OLS guidance seem not just helpful but essential if you wanted to explore this path safely.
That balance they strike, essential but dangerous, without their guidance, definitely frames why their specific methods are necessary from their perspective. But what's really fascinating, I think, is how OLS doesn't just stop at promoting meditation. They seem to have built this whole system, like a comprehensive architecture around this core idea.
Exactly. They branch out into all these different areas. They've set up departments and initiatives that touch on science, time, health, even some unconventional economic ideas, but it all seems to connect back to the idea of light and their practice.
Okay, let's explore these building blocks then. The things that, according to OLS, are supposed to help construct their envisioned sunlight civilization. First up is something they call OLSIE.AEO Science and Counseling. The sources describe this as an undergraduate department within OLS.
Yes, the IE part, or sometimes they write it ENEDS, seems to represent the science function. According to the materials, this department is positioned as the engine driving scientific innovation, supposedly to support communities and governments around the world.
And the scope of their scientific work, as they outline it, seems quite broad. It includes things like analytics and research aimed at planetary well-being. More specifically, they highlight onelightsystem light science.
Yeah, this light science seems to be their main area of scientific focus. They state they are pioneering something called inner equity formation, or IEF, specifically through sunlight meditation.
Inner equity formation. Yeah. Okay, that's definitely not a standard scientific term. What do the sources tell us about what IEF actually is and how it's formed, according to OLS?
Well, the sources describe IEF as a process that enhances personal energy accumulation. That's the phrase they use. It's apparently formed through these meditative rest sessions, guided by their OLS meditator driver. This accumulation of energy is then positioned as resulting in personal eternal equity.
Personal eternal equity.
Yeah. So within the OLS framework, IEF seems to be their specific term for building up some kind of internal, energetic, or spiritual resource through their meditation techniques. And this resource is seen as a form of lasting personal value or equity.
So it's almost like cultivating an internal, non-material kind of wealth or strength through the meditation itself, and OLS Light Science is studying how that happens.
Precisely. That seems to be the idea. The sources mention they have labs specifically for hands-on research in this area, and their stated research areas are pretty diverse. They talk about looking into local solutions, which apparently involves analyzing vibration.
Analyzing vibration.
Yes, potentially via their OLSM meditation practice with the goal of improving communities.
Analyzing vibrations via meditation for community improvements. That's certainly unique. What else are they researching?
They have OLS Health, which focuses on advancing vitality and lifespan. This is said to be achieved through unique self-cleansing methods developed within OLS.
Okay, self-cleansing. We'll definitely need to circle back and dive deeper into OLS Health in a bit. But what about the environmental side of their research?
Their environmental research supposedly studies aqua, sound, and light, focusing on eco-sustainability. They're looking at how these elements, maybe viewed through their particular light science lens, can contribute to a healthier planet.
Okay. And connecting this scientific work to, like, the broader society, the sources mention governance collaboration.
Yes, they state they partner with various entities, including state and federal governments. This collaboration is said to use insights gathered from their OLS data center to help inform policy decisions. So it positions their research findings as potentially having real-world impacts on how things are governed, according to their materials anyway.
They also mention innovative education within the science department, equipping students not just with the meditation practice itself, but also with tools and knowledge for doing research within the OLS framework.
It really paints a picture of a comprehensive approach, trying to apply their core principles across many different domains. And speaking of foundational structures, OLS also seems to be addressing something as fundamental as how we perceive and measure reality itself, time.
Yes, that's right. OLS, the science department, is credited in the sources with developing what they present as an improved calendar system, the sunlight calendar.
They claim this calendar is specifically aligned with what they call sun source energy, and that this alignment is key to fostering consciousness evolution. One of its really distinct features is what they term a correct new year, which they state begins on December 22nd. The sources even give 2024 as a specific example year for this new year start date.
December 22nd. Okay, that's the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. So that connects it directly to a major solar event. And their calendar doesn't just redefine the new year, it also uses a pretty unique historical starting point.
It does. They state the sunlight calendar counts a light year age that begins from the birth of pre-founder Akhenaten 300 and 405 years ago.
Akhenaten, the Egyptian pharaoh known for focusing on the sun god Aten.
Exactly. So within their system, the current year is presented as the 300 and 405th year of the light year age. They also seem to track time on a daily level. One source mentions a day 175, presumably within this calendar structure.
Using Akhenaten as the starting point for their light year age, that definitely provides a historical and symbolic link back to ancient solar reverence, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It roots their whole system in this deep historical connection to sun worship or, solar philosophy. And complementing this calendar is their, revolutionary timekeeping system, which they call light time.
They describe light time as a proper clock synchronized with sun rhythms. How is this supposed to be different from standard time, according to OLS?
Well, the stated goal is to align human activity much more closely with natural light cycles. The sources claim that using light time can actually enhance the effectiveness of sunlight meditation, improve biological clocks, and generally lead to better well-being. They also state this system is open to all request access, suggesting it's something anyone could potentially adopt.
And they seem to make it relatively easy to try, mentioning free OLS calendar widgets and light time clock widgets that you can download for your personal website via olsme.com so people can actively use and display these new ways of measuring time.
It's another clear example of how they're trying to build a system intended to reorient people, not just spiritually, but also in terms of their daily rhythms and how they perceive time, all centered around the sun.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit from the foundational science and time systems, OLS also clearly have a major focus on physical well-being through their dedicated health arm. The sources introduced the OLS Health Improvements Package, which they call OLS 2967. It was apparently announced on June 8, 2025.
Right. This OLS 2967 package, it's presented as a premium suite of holistic health solutions, really designed to enhance vitality and resilience. It looks like one of their key offerings for people seeking physical benefits within the OLS framework.
The sources list several key features for this package. Things like personalized wellness plans that integrate biofeedback and sunlight meditation techniques. They also mentioned advanced health support, including tools like the OLS Health Monitor.
Expert guidance is also part of it, provided through one-on-one consultations, and subscribers supposedly get access to their community network, connecting them with other people on a similar health journey within OLS.
Now, one of the core concepts within OLS Health is something they call self-cleansing. What is that?
They present this as a proven, innovative daily practice. The sources claim it leads to rejuvenation and healing, and they state it's backed by 6 years of research and offers measurable improvements and life extension.
Measurable improvements and life extension. That's a pretty powerful claim for a daily practice.
Yeah.
Do the sources offer any more detail on, the mechanics of this self-cleansing process or the research behind those claims? Did they share the data?
Well, the sources state quite clearly that it's a proven, innovative practice developed through 6 years of research, resulting in measurable improvements and life extension. However, the materials we have here don't really elaborate on the specific mechanisms of the self-cleansing process itself. They also don't provide details on how those improvements or lifespan changes were measured in their research.
Oh, okay.
They basically present the claim and the duration of the research, but not the methodology or the data, at least not in these particular documents.
So the claim is made, linked to research, but the details of that research aren't provided in this material. That's an important distinction to make.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the specific packages they actually offer?
There seem to be a few premium packages mentioned. The OLS Health Starter is described as a 100-day program. It includes something called the OLSA Knowledge Intro, which is described as a guide to the self-cleansing process. You also apparently receive resupply materials for those 100 days and get access to information on lifespan longevity, which they state are research-backed methods achieved through sunlight meditation.
And what's the value proposition they put on that starter package? How do they price it?
They state its value is equivalent to 2 OLS student evaluations. It also includes the OLS Health Monitor, which they say is free in 2025, and it qualifies you for health discounts on other OLS things.
And is there a smaller, more introductory package?
Yes, the Healing Therapy Intro. This is described as an essential introduction specifically focused on the self-cleansing methodology. Its value is stated as comparable to just 1 OLS student evaluation.
Okay, so it seems like they've structured these as different entry points into their health system. And they also mentioned that the general OLS student and OLSME subscription packages also include the OLS Health Monitor for free in 2025 and grant health discounts. So they're linking these different parts of the OLS ecosystem together.
Yes, it definitely creates a sense of a connected system. And regarding the OLS Health Monitor itself, the sources describe it as a tool designed to help you track your daily progress. It seems specifically structured to monitor activity from sunrise, which they peg at 6 a.m., to sunset, 6 p.m., with space provided for you to make personal notes throughout those hours.
Interesting. And there's a truly unique detail presented in the sources within this health section, a specific outreach effort they mention.
Yes, that was quite specific. They mentioned extending a special offer of the OLS Health Improvements Package to His Majesty King Charles III. They note it was done in light of recent health reports concerning him, and they state it's available for a confidential consultation.
Wow. That certainly positions their health offering as something they believe is relevant even at the highest levels of influence, according to their own reporting here. Okay, so moving beyond just physical health, OLS also seems to focus on cultivating inner vitality through something called OLSME, which stands for One Light System Meditative Energy.
Right, OLSME. This is presented as a more accessible extension of their core sunlight meditation practice. Its stated purpose is to help users synchronize with what they call source energy, aiming for awareness, illumination, and global connectivity.
The sources try to explain the mechanism behind OLSME. They use this analogy of an OLS meditator acting as a driver who guides the user, the passenger, through meditative rest sessions. What exactly are these meditative rest sessions, and what is this driver-passenger dynamic supposed to achieve?
Based on the sources, these sessions seem to be where the user engages in the OLS meditative process, but guided by the driver, which could presumably be an experienced practitioner, or maybe the OLS system itself through some interface. The stated outcome is enhancing personal energy accumulation.
Ah, that phrase again.
Yes, the process we discussed earlier that leads to the formation of the inner equity formation, or IEF. So OLSME is presented as the tool, or the practice, specifically for building up this internal energy or equity reserve.
So it's like making that process of building IEF more guided, maybe faster, for the user.
Right. That seems to be the idea. Initially, OLSME was described as being mainly for master practitioners and students, but the sources indicate it's now available publicly, supposedly for quicker attunement to the source energy.
And they offer it in different ways. There's the general OLSME subscription, which is described as providing a public verified portfolio, I guess allowing users to track or somehow verify their progress or the energy they've accumulated.
Possibly. They also mention OLSME corporates, which are tailored training packages designed for workplace wellness. And interestingly, they even list governmental employees as a specific target group for this corporate training.
The claimed benefits of OLSME are quite substantial. They include awareness illumination, which sounds like gaining enhanced clarity or insight.
Yes, and natural coherence synchronization. They explain this provides energetic rest and a boost, sort of aligning the user's energy with natural rhythms.
Then there's energy accumulation, claiming you get automatic access to source energy through the practice.
And finally, global reach natural G connectivity. That sounds like suggesting a connection to some kind of global energetic network or field.
They also link this OLSME directly to a real natural light data signals accumulation equity assets program, further tying it to the concept of energy accumulation and strengthening that inner equity, the IEF.
And this brings us quite naturally to another layer of the OLS ecosystem that is, well, quite unique and arguably pretty unconventional. OLSLM assets. This stands for One Light System Light Minute.
Okay, light minutes as assets. The sources call this a pioneering personal light real equity asset. How is it created? How do you get one?
It's described as being mined, M-I-N-E-D, like mining through OLS techniques. And crucially, it leverages an OLS student as the essential practitioner of a sunlight meditation. So the asset isn't just something you're given, it's generated by the individual through their active meditative practice using the OLS methods.
So the practice itself actually creates the asset.
Yes, that appears to be the core concept. They state these assets are assets and benefits at the same time, representing personal eternal equity, again, linking back to that IEF concept, derived from the active meditative light energy generated during the practice.
That's a really fascinating framing, isn't it? Turning what sounds like a spiritual or energetic practice into a form of, well, tangible personal asset.
They position these OLSLM assets as a unique and real form of a value, not just within their own OLS ecosystem, but potentially contributing to what they call a global tokenization era. Each asset being mined through active meditation is said to reflect the user's commitment to the practice and the OLS principles.
The sources provide some numbers here too. They mention a total supply of 379 assets currently available, which they say represents only 1.45% of the total supply they eventually envision. They also break down examples like there are 346 OLS 9LM assets available, 1.8% of that type, and 33 OLS 4LM assets, 0.5% of that type.
And the process they outline to actually obtain these assets involves several steps. You need to register first, then you have to verify your identity. That verification grants you access to the OLSLM marketplace where you can then place an order for these assets.
They also mention a transfer concept. These unique assets can apparently be transferred from one owner to another, and they state this transfer is an additional layer that could potentially benefit the original owner, the one who mined it with a percentage, maybe from the minting, if the asset is subsequently used or activated by the new owner.
It definitely introduces a layer of potential economic interaction and value exchange built directly on the foundation of their unique meditation practice and the energy or equity it supposedly generates.
So when we bring all these building blocks together, the science, the redefinition of time, the health programs, the cultivation of inner energy with OLSME, and these unique digital assets like OLSLM, why does this comprehensive system matter to you, the listener? It really shows how OLS seems to be attempting to build a truly holistic framework.
Yeah, it does.
They're applying their core principle of light and sunlight meditation to almost every facet of life, physical, mental, temporal, even economic, creating this proposed system for total personal and collective transformation, all driving towards their envisioned sunlight civilization.
It's not just promoting a single practice, it's presented more like an entire operating system for human life and society, all centered around this concept of light.
And this vision isn't just limited to individual practice or even like local communities. The sources make it clear that OLS has a much, much grander scale in mind. They seem to be aiming for global engagement and even setting their sights beyond Earth.
Absolutely. This expands their vision in several key ways, starting with how they aim to grow their network through a pretty structured referral program.
They frame the OLS promoter role and this referral program as a way for individuals to build your luminous network and also share the gift of sunlight meditation.
The structure they describe is quite extensive. It's a 25-level network, which they explicitly label a pyramid of opportunity.
A pyramid structure. Okay. This structure allows promoters to earn commissions not just from people they directly refer, that's level 1, but from connections made all the way down through 25 levels. The sources even list the commission rates. 5% for level 1, 4% for level 2, dropping gradually, 1% at level 5, 0.5% at level 10, and a tiny percentage, 0.01%, all the way down at level 25.
And they also highlight a temporary incentive they're offering, a 5% bonus commission for promoters who manage to lock project terms by June 30th, 2025. This would effectively boost the commission rates for that period, making level 1 pay 10%, level 2 pay 9%, and so on, but only for those who meet that specific deadline.
And to support this promoter activity, they provide tools like a unique referral link and what they call a powerful dashboard to track network growth. This effort to build a large network of promoters seems directly linked to that community access element we saw mentioned in the health section, right? Connecting individuals into a global network of wellness enthusiasts and helping to grow the light civilization community.
Exactly. But beyond building a network from the ground up, the sources also report on OLS making outreach efforts to establish leadership. Specifically, they detail that they send letters or recommendation letters to various governments and presidents.
Now, this is presented very factually in the sources provided to us. They list the specific entities they claim to have sent communications to. This includes both USA Presidents DJ Trump and the Biden-Harris government. They also mention reaching out to the French president, the Taiwan government, and even California's state education departments, specifically the CDE and NBES.
And the sources provide specific dates for some of these communications, too. For instance, they note a letter sent to the French president on March 15, 2024, and one to USA President DJ Trump on February 16, 2025. They also mentioned that earlier deliveries to both the Biden-Harris administration and DJ Trump were noted elsewhere in their materials.
Now, it's really important for us to reiterate here, as presented in these sources, this is OLS reporting the delivery of these communications. The materials we have do not detail the specific content of these letters or recommendation letters. They don't present any particular political stance taken within them.
Right.
This outreach seems to be presented more within the context of their science department's stated function of engaging in governance collaboration.
Yes, that aligns with their stated goal of supporting communities and governments through their scientific insights and data as they see it.
And then perhaps the most ambitious, the most expansive part of their vision outlined in these sources takes us far beyond Earth. The Venus mission.
Yes, Venus. This is described as a pioneering effort to explore and potentially settle Venus. The sources state this mission is led by Asfitloten himself.
It's presented as a really complex undertaking, integrating Starship technology, orbit station development, and OLS light science. So it's not just about building rockets. It's explicitly linked back to their core scientific framework again.
The key objectives they list are certainly ambitious: developing resilient starships capable of interplanetary travel, establishing a sustainable orbit station around Venus, investigating Venus's habitability, and this is where the light science comes in again, using sunlight meditation and light science to conduct this research, and finally, designing a landing base on the Venusian surface.
Investigating habitability using sunlight meditation. That directly links their core spiritual practice to what sounds like a hard science exploration mission.
It absolutely does. It really shows how deeply they integrate their unique methodology into even their most ambitious scientific goals. The sources even provide a project timeline detailing planned simulations. They mention planning simulations were completed from May to August 2023, and others are currently in progress as of March 2025.
And the timeline stretches out pretty far into the future, doesn't it? With scheduled simulations, testing, training dates listed, culminating in a projected launch test planned for a window between March 9 and April 23, 2033.
That gives a very concrete, albeit distant, target for this mission. And the sources offer even more light science insights specifically related to Venus that supposedly guide this whole endeavor.
What are those insights?
Well, they include the theory of a common origin for Earth and Venus, suggesting they both maybe started as cooled celestial bodies. And more intriguingly, they mention exploring the theory of a lost Venusian civilization.
A lost civilization on Venus. And how does sunlight meditation play into exploring that?
The sources explicitly state they plan on using sunlight meditation to guide this research into Venus's past, specifically concerning this theory of a lost civilization and also its future habitability. So, within the OLS framework, their meditative practice is actually seen as a tool for gaining insights into cosmic history and potential future environments.
Wow. That truly connects the most individual internal practice to the most expansive cosmic goal they outline.
And this entire Venus mission is positioned as part of their broader vision to illuminate the planet and beyond.
So when you consider this expanding vision from building a multi-level global network to engaging with world leaders as they report it and setting sights on interstellar exploration with a mission explicitly guided by sunlight meditation, why does this bigger picture matter to you, the listener? It really shows that OLS's aspirations, as laid out in these sources, are truly vast.
Yeah, vast is the word.
They aim to scale their core principles and practices to influence global society and explore the cosmos, framing all of it as steps towards their comprehensive sunlight civilization.
It definitely demonstrates the all-encompassing nature of the system they are attempting to build and propagate.
Which brings us to the practical question then. Based on the sources we have, how does someone actually get involved with OLS if they are interested in exploring these ideas and practices further?
Well, the sources outline several different pathways for participation. The most comprehensive path they describe is to become an ONS student. They state this is the most comprehensive path for full immersion into the sunlight civilization.
And they lay out a rather structured multi-step onboarding process for prospective students, don't they?
Yes, it involves quite a few steps. First, you submit an evaluation application register. Then you receive assessment results back from OLS. Following that, you make a 50% prepayment for what they call an intro service. You then have to schedule and attend an OLS intro video call. If you decide to proceed after that, there's another 50% prepayment, this time for an Initi service, which you then also schedule and attend. Finally, after completing all those steps, you are formally welcomed aboard as an OLS student.
That sounds like a very thorough, maybe even rigorous, multi-stage process. And they mentioned that the tuition fees are tailored.
Yes, they state the fees are determined based on several factors. Your location's GDP, the population of your area, your global position, whatever that means exactly, your age, and your experience or status.
So it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all tuition fee, but they do offer a more standardized option as well.
Yes. They mention a fast onboarding option is available with general fees for those who might prefer a more straightforward approach to the tuition calculation. They also highlight something called a Pioneer program that apparently offers discounts for early adopters in specific regions.
Okay. What are the other pathways mentioned beyond becoming a full student?
Well, you could explore the OLSME subscription. That grants you access to the core meditative energy features and the community aspects we talked about. There's also the option to focus specifically on OLSLM assets, allowing you to acquire and manage what they term tangible OLSLM light assets.
And the health-focused options we discussed earlier.
Right. You can engage specifically with the OLS health packages, like that 100-day starter program or the healing therapy intro. Those are focused on their self-cleansing methodology for health improvement.
And finally, there's the community building aspect too.
Exactly. Becoming an OLS promoter is presented as another pathway. That allows you to join their referral program, build your network, and potentially earn commissions, as we discussed with the 25-level structure.
And the sources provide specific URLs as the key access points for getting more information and potentially registering for these various pathways.
Yes, they list links like olsme.com/OLS student prospect for the student path, olsme.com/OLSELF packages for the health options, olsme.com to the promoter program, olsme.com to the launchpad, which likely relates to the Venus mission or other initiatives, and a general registration link at olsme.com/register-setsalter-doc.
Okay, so we've completed our deep dive into this stack of sources about One Light System. We've journeyed from their foundational premise about the absolutely critical importance of receiving direct light and the necessity of safe practice through their specific OLSLM method, all the way to their really ambitious vision of a global sunlight civilization.
Yeah, we've explored the pretty diverse building blocks they claim they are developing to realize this vision. Their science department digging into concepts from inner equity formation to environmental sustainability and even governance collaboration. Their creation of a unique sunlight calendar and light time system aimed at synchronizing humanity with solar rhythms.
And their specific health programs focused on vitality and longevity through this idea of self-cleansing, the cultivation of inner energy via OLSME, and that really intriguing concept of generating OLSLM assets as a new form of personal value in a, quote, tokenization era.
We also saw how their vision extends outward through community building with that referral network, engagement with global leadership as they report it, and how it reaches for the stars with their ambitious Venus mission, guided, according to their own sources, by their unique light science and sunlight meditation insights.
It's clear that OLS, at least as presented in these materials, is putting forth a really comprehensive system and a vast vision for transforming individuals, society, and maybe even our place in the cosmos, all fundamentally centered around the power of light.
So here's where it gets really interesting, I think, and gives us and you a lot to think about. As you process everything we've covered from these sources, maybe consider this provocative thought drawn directly from the material itself. What are the potential implications of considering light minutes earned through meditation as a real equity asset in a global tokenization era? And maybe separately, how might the idea of using sunlight meditation to guide research into the habitability of Venus reshape our understanding of both spiritual practice and scientific exploration?
It definitely pushes the boundaries of conventional thinking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
These sources present a worldview where this really ancient human connection to the sun seems to converge with, well, cutting-edge technology, specific health practices, new economic concepts, and some truly cosmic ambitions.
We encourage you to reflect on these concepts based only on the information we've presented here today from these sources, and just ponder the potential impact and meaning of such a system as OLS describes.